Right friends, welcome back to Economic Survey 2015-16. Economic Survey gives the state of the economy and most important document before the budget is presented. And if you look at the important issues highlighted by Economic Survey, it focused basically on three things. One is JOM, second one is public investment, third one is human capital. And it expressed concerns on twin balance sheets, exit problem, subsidies going for the rich and well off. We are going to discuss one by one in detail, and before going into the actual economic survey, let us look at the meaningful measures taken by the government during 2015-16. This is as per the economic survey itself. Economic survey in its first pages stated that meaningful measures were undertaken by the government during 2015-16. First and the foremost is transparent auctions of public assets and non-interference in regulatory decisions. Transparent auctions, whether it pertains to spectrum auction or coal auctions, government stated that it has conducted these auctions in most transparent way. Whatever I have listed here are as per the economic survey as stated in the initial pages. Second is the liberalization of foreign direct investment rules, including insurance. Third one is clarity on minimum alternate tax to boost the confidence of foreign investors. All of you are well aware, government stated that minimum alternate tax is not applicable for foreign portfolio investors as they do not have permanent establishment in this country. And fourth one is giving impetus to public investment. This is the need of the hour as the private investment and exports are not up to the mark. In fact, exports are shrinking and private investment is not taking off because of some reasons which we are going to discuss in this economic survey itself. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana in mission mode by opening around 20 crore bank accounts. All of you are well aware, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana was launched in mission mode and 20 crore bank accounts were opened. Next is Prime Minister's announcement of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana that will give affordable crop insurance to the farmers. Next important issue is direct benefit transfer for LPG, where more than 15 crore people are getting LPG subsidy directly into their bank accounts, and this has entered into Guinness Book of Records as the largest direct transferred subsidy program. And please don't forget, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana is also into Guinness Book of Records. Next one is attempting to change social norms like Swachh Bharat, open defecation free society, giving up subsidies voluntarily, what we have seen under Give It Up and Swachh Bharat by 2019 and open defecation free society by 2019. Next important point is comprehensive reforms under UDAY. This is basically to improve the health of DISCOMs in electric distribution. Then avoiding the policy reversals, that means consistency in policies. So these are the measures undertaken by the government as stated in the economic survey. And what are the issues which require focus and what are the concerns? I listed out 10 points as per economic survey, and we are going to deliberate one by one in detail. First one is growth for 2015-16 will be at 7.6%. And for 2016-17, it has given range of 7 to 7.75%. We are going to discuss what is the reason for it. Second one is focus on JOM. JOM means Jan Dhan Yojana bank account, Aadhaar, then mobile, and remove challenges in last mile connectivity. There are several challenges with regard to last mile connectivity. That means so as to reach the remotest village of the country, and please try to remove those bottlenecks. That is the message given by economic survey. Third important point is economic survey expressed concern about subsidies, benefits of around rupees 1 lakh crore going to rich or better off in the society. Then increase public investment. This is the need of the hour because private investment is not taking off and exports are falling continuously for the past 14 months. Then increase the tax to GDP ratio, very important. In comparison to other developing countries and developed countries, we have one of the lowest tax to GDP ratio. Then increase investment on human capital, which include education and health, which is at present 5.1% of GDP. This is also one of the lowest when we compare it with developed countries and emerging economies. If you look at the next one, solve the twin balance sheet problem of banks and corporate houses. Because of the stress in the economy, banks are having bad debt problem, and at the same time there is a stress in the balance sheets of corporate houses, and we have to come out of it as per economic survey. Next, solve exit problem to come out of loss making entities. There are several public sector entities which are loss making, so please come out of them. Then stringent labor laws, creating more contract labor. Nowadays, the workforce created is by way of contract labor, not as regular labor. And these stringent labor laws are coming in the way of creating regular employment as felt by economic survey. Then focus on increasing agriculture productivity. So these are the 10 areas which are highlighted by economic survey as highlights, as areas of focus, as areas of concern. And before going into them one by one, please look at the macroeconomic indicators. GDP growth expected to be 7 to 7.75% next year. Wide range is given. We will discuss sometime later what is the reason for it. Then fiscal deficit, this is as percentage of GDP. All of you are well aware fiscal deficit is nothing but the difference between expenditure and revenue. This fiscal deficit is to be kept at certain percentage, otherwise what will happen? It will lead to inflationary tendency in the economy. And please don't forget, as per Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act of 2003, fiscal deficit should be brought down to 3% of GDP. And for the year 2016-17, it is kept at 3.5%, and government's intention is to reach 3% by 2017-18. Industrial growth, this is Index of Industrial Production, which is released by Central Statistics Office, and it is 3.1% for the current year. And if you look at the food grains production, it reached the highest ever in 2013-14. Please don't forget, the food grain production is the highest ever in 2013-14 at 265 million tons, and it reduced by around 13 million tons in 2014-15, and it is almost close to that figure this year also. And inflation, wholesale price index inflation is around minus 2.8% because of a fall in commodity prices, as the weightage of manufacturing sector in wholesale price index is very high, and consumer price index is around 4.9% for the year 2015-16, is within the well laid out limit specified by Reserve Bank of India. And if you look at foreign trade, the worrying factor is exports are falling drastically, and during the current year, exports have fallen by 17.6%, and imports have also fallen, but the basic reason is the fall in crude oil prices. Right, friends? So with this macroeconomic indicators, let us discuss all these 10 issues one by one. First one is GDP growth. GDP growth for the current year is 2015-16 is 7.6%, and for the next year it is expected to be 7 to 7.75% range. Wide range is given, keeping in mind uncertainties pertaining to agriculture on one side and global headwinds on the other side. Global uncertain environment is prevailing at this juncture, and because of agriculture, because of global headwinds which may come in future, this wide range is kept. The wide range is 7 to 7.75%. And reasons for optimism of getting more than 7% growth is expansion in services sector. As usual, services sector is growing comfortably. then accelerated growth in industry and a slight pickup in index of industrial production. Because of these reasons, this GDP growth is expected to be 7 to 7.75%. If you look at the GDP growth, there are four prominent or primary elements. One is private consumption. Private consumption is up to the mark because of high population in our country. Then public investment. Public investment is taken off in recent times, especially in highway sector. Private investment is not taking off because of two primary reasons. One is already excess capacity was created in sectors like steel. The second is the balance sheets are stressed in some sectors, especially infrastructure, because of certain bottlenecks. Because of these reasons, private investment is not taking off because several of the private companies already overstressed and their balance sheets are stressed. And exports, because of global environment, exports are not taking off and exports are continuously falling for the past 14 months. Right, friends? So, this GDP growth is primarily dependent on private consumption and public investment. Public investment is the investment made by government sector, public sector enterprises, state governments. So, the main focus for GDP growth during 2016-17 will be this public investment. Please don't forget. Second important aspect, focus on JAM. JAM is Jan Dhan Yojana bank account. You can simply say bank account, Aadhaar, then mobile linkage. If you link these three things, then ultimately no duplication will be there. Then the money can be transferred directly into the bank accounts instantaneously. That will result in direct benefit into the hands of the poor. Then leakages can be plugged. Lot of savings for the government. And it totally lowers or eliminates corruption. So, these are the advantages of going for JAM. So, what are the constraints? First thing is, this penetration of this bank account is quite satisfactory in some states, but it is not satisfactory in some of the states. So, the penetration of bank account is to be ensured in the lagging states. Second is Aadhaar. Aadhaar has got no legislative framework till date. It came under severe criticism several times from the Supreme Court. Now the government realized, and in the budget, government announced legislative framework for Aadhaar. And accordingly, government introduced a bill in Parliament for bringing legislative framework for transfer through direct benefit transfer using Aadhaar. So, this problem will be solved shortly. Then third important point is widespread use of mobile money is to be ensured. So, the suggested improvements I have given here, strengthening business correspondence model. Then second one is the spread of mobile money extensively, and basic bank account penetration is not up to the mark in some states, that is to be ensured. Then this biometric authentication is to be ensured, because rural areas biometric authentication is the most reliable method, and for that purpose it requires more bandwidth. So, these are the problems which are to be solved so as to ensure the JAM. Look into the third one, subsidies or benefits of rupees 1 lakh crore going to rich or well off. The economic survey listed 7 items where the benefits are going to the well off. Please don't forget, here the economic survey has taken 70% population of the country are better off and 30% are below poverty line, or you can say below middle class. So, 70% of the population are considered as well-off population in this country by economic survey, and as per that classification, this is arrived at. That means in the kerosene, 49% of the benefits are going to better off, and it is estimated that this amounts to rupees 5,500 crores annually. Similarly, if you take electricity, the subsidies or the concessions given by the government, rich are garnering around 84%, which comes to around 37,000 crores of rupees. And if you take LPG as a whole, rich people are garnering subsidy up to an extent of 91%. That means out of 100 people where subsidies are going, 91% people are better off, and 40,000 crores of rupees is going into the hands of better off. Similarly, railways 3,000 crores, then aviation turbine fuel. The concessions given for aviation turbine fuel entirely going to rich people, because rich people only use this air travel. Then gold 4,000 crores is going into the rich people's hands, and accordingly in public provident fund around 12,000 crores is going into the hands of rich. Accordingly, this entire implicit subsidy for better off or non-poor, you can say, is around 1 lakh crores of rupees, as pointed out by Economic Survey, and government has to take steps to look into this aspect, because any government has to look for merit subsidies, not non-merit subsidies. Then increase public investment. As we have already discussed, private investment is not taking off because of two reasons. One is some of the private companies are already overstressed. That means because of high debt equity ratio or whatever the problem, they are not able to pay back the debts. They are already into problems. The second important reason is excess capacity is already created in sectors like steel. Because of these reasons, private sector is not in a position to increase investment. That's why the credit takeoff from the banking system is not satisfactory. And by the way, please don't forget, public sector banks are also overstressed in this regard. Right? Because of these reasons, this private investment is not taking off, and exports are also falling, and the only thing what the government can do at this juncture is give more impetus for infrastructure and capacity augmentation through public sector, whether it is by central government, whether it is by public sector enterprises, or whether it is by state governments, but give more impetus to investment in the public sector. That has to go on during 2016-17 also. Look into the next one, increase the tax to GDP ratio. Very interesting statistics are given in Economic Survey. Tax to GDP ratio is 16.6%. I have given the comparison here. In Brazil, it is 36%. In Turkey, another emerging economy, 29%. So, when you compare with even emerging economies, we are lagging behind. And tax to GDP ratio needs improvement. At present, it is 16.6%. And please don't forget, only 4% of voters in this country are the taxpayers, and only 5.5% who pay tax. Then only 15.5% of net national income reported to the tax authorities. So, as to come out of this problem, the Economic Survey suggested certain things which include phase out tax exemptions, raise property tax rates. Then most important point is bring rich farmers into the tax net. We have to wait and see whether government will take decision to bring farmers into the tax net. Increase investments in human capital, very important aspect. Without infrastructure, without human capital, no country can have better progress. So, under these circumstances, if you look at the comparison of various countries with regard to the investments in human capital, India is 5.1%. And these investments in human capital include education and health, please don't forget. And if you look at other countries, if you look at Brazil, it is 11%, Vietnam even 9%. So, emerging economies are faring better than India. So, the Economic Survey points out, please increase investment in human capital. Then come out of twin balance sheet problem. First, banks are facing problems. banks are facing problems because of non-performing assets. Basically, public sector banks are into severe stress. Corporate houses have taken loans. Basically, this problem is with corporate loans. Corporate houses have taken loans, but they are not able to pay back. That's why they became non-performing assets. Similarly, several corporate houses are also into stress. Infrastructure developers are into problems because forest clearances are not given by government, land acquisition was not done by government. Like that, there are some problems where infrastructure firms are into problems. Second is the firms which are not able to pay back to the banks are into problems. They are not able to come out of it. So, as such, several corporate houses are into problems. Rightly, Economic Survey pointed out this can be termed as twin balance sheet problem of public sector banks as well as corporate houses. The Economic Survey suggested 4 R's, that is recognizing the problem, then recapitalization, then resolution, then reform. This they stated as 4 R's. Let us see whether the banks and corporate houses will follow this mechanism or not. Then exit problem. This is the biggest problem. Now you see, in government sector, Air India is into 7th straight year of loss. What is the need for the government to stick to Air India? Government should come out of it. Then, if you look at public sector banks, there are several problems associated with public sector banks. Nowadays, public sector banks are reporting losses. There is a need for consolidation of these smaller banks into bigger banks. Not only that, government can come out of some banks. This is called exit problem. If something is into losses, what is the need for the government to stick to it? So, government should come out of this. That is known as exit problem. If you look at the power distribution companies, almost they are into debt of around 4 lakh crores of rupees, and recently the system devised by the government, that is UDAY, may solve this problem. Then if you look at the public sector enterprises, recently government decided to sell these HMT watches, and similarly there are several other public sector enterprises. Government should come out of these loss making enterprises. Then there are several stressed sectors in private sector like steel, and government should bring immediately insolvency and bankruptcy code. Then infrastructure sector is into problems, and please ensure Kelkar committee recommendations recently which suggested several measures with regard to the public-private partnership mode of implementation. So, this is exit problem. When something is into the losses, whether it is public sector or private sector, we should have a mechanism to come out of it. That is exit problem. Especially Government of India is facing this problem with regard to public sector enterprises. Right? Look into the next one, stringent labor laws. As per Economic Survey, in recent times, more jobs are created as contract workers. Why? What is the need for it? The Industrial Disputes Act of 1947 says that firms with more than 100 workers require government approval before retrenching workers. Accordingly, the private sector organizations are looking at easy escape route. That's why they are creating more contract workers. They are not creating regular workers, because if they create regular workers, tomorrow if they want to retrench those workers, then this 1947 Industrial Disputes Act may come into picture. So as to avoid that, private sector firms are resorting to contract workers. And the Economic Survey strongly felt the need for modifying these labor laws. Last one, raise agriculture productivity. Agriculture productivity is to be increased because of 2 reasons. One is so as to give sustainable livelihoods to the farmers. The second one is so as to create food security to the population of the country. Because of these 2 reasons, agriculture production is to be increased, and in recent times the agriculture production almost stagnant for the past several years. After reaching peak in 2013-14 to 65 million tons, then subsequently agriculture production reduced, and the economic survey suggested to go for genetically modified crops. After wider consultations, then it suggested improved irrigation, farm mechanization, focus on markets and inputs, and rainbow revolution, which indicates agriculture should be seen as integrated entity by combining agriculture, horticulture, forestry, fisheries, poultry, animal husbandry, and so as to improve these sectors, rainbow revolution is required. Right? Now, a lot of debate is going on with regard to genetically modified crops, and after wider consultations, economic survey says, please take a decision on genetically modified crops. Right friends, we discussed all 10 problems, and the final word is, as per the economic survey, concentrate more on public investment, as private investment is not coming up because of several reasons. Second is reduce subsidies to well off. Subsidies should be merit subsidies. Next point is invest more on human capital. Then focus on JOM so as to give last mile connectivity, bring more and more people into the tax net, come out of twin balance sheet problems, immediately bring bankruptcy code, come out of loss making public sector enterprises, modify stringent labor laws so as to create more formal sector regular jobs, increase the productivity in agriculture. So these are the steps suggested in economic survey. Let us wait and see how many of them will be taken by the government seriously. Right friends, very interesting economic survey. They have given lot many suggestions, and with this let us conclude economic survey. Please do join for union budget. Have a nice day. Thank you.